How's it going, everyone? We're going to do episode 2 of Bliss Clips. I haven't done this in a while, so I've accumulated a bunch of clips, so let's get right into it. Starting with culture is a hierarchy of participation.
Difficulty that we have, of course, is our world is upside down, and so we think that culture is movies. Like we think that that's what culture is. Like culture is, dance is not dancing. Dancing is watching the ballet, right? And stories are not something that you should engage in and participate in, but it's just something you should sit down with a tub of popcorn and watch. So, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. I think it's about hierarchy.
Yeah, this problem with video games, which you are sort of alluding to.
So, I don't remember a lot of this. Like I said, it's been a good amount of time, but I guess that one, what did I say? Clipped it. Culture is a hierarchy of participation. Yeah, so pretty straightforward, I think. What are you saying there? So let's move on to the next one. Revolution is recognition of truth coming towards us. What this one's all about.
We know this in our life. I do something. I did something 20 years ago, and then I meet someone 20 years later, and they said, "What about this?" And this caused this, and you don't know. None of us know. So we're all in a world where we're leaving traces of ourselves, dishevelment everywhere. Maybe convivial creations as well. And they're all acting upon things that we have no idea about. The tradition of revelation, I think, is a recognition that the truth is always coming towards us in unexpected encounters and ways that we can't close off. And if we close it off with some design, we're doing the world, ourselves, God, ourselves great service. And I think it'll be diabolical. It doesn't matter whether your intentions are good. It doesn't matter, oh no, it's equality. We know this in our life.
So that was pretty good. More Christ. Shout out More Christ. What is his name? Sorry, I forget. But that was a good clip. Can I say about that? Yeah, participating with God, not thinking that you're God and you just create the world through your own magnificent knowledge and ethics. It needs to be a partnership. The next one, scientific revolution, the beginning of nihilism.
Well, we underwent the scientific revolution, started 500 years ago, say, and it concentrated on delineation of the nature of the objective world. We found out that the heavens were other than what we had presupposed, and that the God we had imagined inhabiting those heavens did not appear in the starkly empty and barren, immense, vast landscape of the cosmos. And we believed that if you were sensible and abandoned your superstitions, that you'd see the world as the cold, dead, mechanistic, inert object of process that it most truly is. Well, we've got a long way with that viewpoint. That reductionist materialism has made us unbelievably powerful. Well, we underwent the scientific revolution.
Yeah, I think good framing there. Scientific revolution being the catalyst of reductionist, deconstructionist viewpoint of everything. There's no participation with higher being or higher purpose in the world. It's all, what we can perceive and, yeah, kind of relates to the last video that, if that's all it is, then our own fallen godlike ethics and ventures, even if they are with good intentions, can often be diabolical if there's no participation with a higher being. So next one.
So what's that proposition? Well, you lose your traditional faith, your traditional religious faith. You still need an interpretive structure to guide you. And so what you might say is that, well, as the classic God of the monotheistic Western tradition collapses, then his polytheistic adversaries rise up to replace him. You are bound to act out your belief in something. And maybe it's your own hedonistic will, fragmented, impulsive, hedonistic will. And you might think that's you, but that's just a sequence of lower gods that are possessing you. So
Yep, same thing there. Think, what you worship is what you become, what you are. Same thing at a societal level. Next one, how the fringe and the middle interact.
For me, you have a way of talking about faith and organized religion that really resonates with me, because you pay so much attention to aspects of the fringe and how the fringe negotiates with the middle and what the middle is, right? And a real openness about the fact that in any faith, certainly we were focusing in this instance in we'll call it Judeo-Christian because we all know where things are headed, faith, that there's an admonishment against too much pureness. Like, one of the things that was so funny is we were talking about the story of Miriam, right, who came in all snotty pants about Moses when he wanted to marry an Ethiopian. And she was, clucking at him that he shouldn't, right? It's too much outsider, right? Skin color doesn't match. And in one of the great strokes of humor in the Old Testament, God came down and turned her snow white. It's like, oh, you want to be pure? For me, you have a way of talking.
Yeah, that one's good. Because I think a lot of people can, either religious people or not, be very dogmatic in their views. Like, I know what's right, what's wrong, and I understand it, and try to tell off other people if it's not conforming to their belief system. Like, even if you believe Christ is, everything and has significant in the Bible and everything like that, is significant structuring in our lives and in the world, to think that all there is to know about that, and God's design is pretty haughty. So yeah, I think especially for Christians, but again for everyone, to kind of be aware of when that's happening, because maybe be reminded of that story in the Old Testament of being too legalistic and not allowing too much, allowing the outside to participate in the world. Next one, common attention is what binds us together.
Understand that it's attention that binds us, right? Common attention is what binds us together. And so if we're together and we're focused on the same thing, like in a sports team, for example, then that will bind us. Like we'll experience togetherness in a way that is hard to describe. If you know that we're all trying to score a goal in a soccer game, then all of a sudden it's like things start to move together. You start to be aware of the other person without thinking. You make a pass without looking. The person is there for some reason. It's like this magical cohesion that happens as you're moving towards a purpose. But that has to do with common attention. So religion and faith, what it tries to do is to identify what's the highest point. Like what's the highest point of attention? What's the thing that can bind us most together in the most important way and the highest way? And so you could say, I mean, a simple way to say it's like if we all stand together and worship the creator of the universe, who is also the God, understand that.
Yeah, another good one there. What you worship, what we worship is who we are. And yeah, if we don't have common attention somewhere, that means that we're all going to be fragmented. And what the world looks like when we're all fragmented is pretty. I guess that's a lot like what's happening now. Patrick Deneen in his book, Why Liberalism Failed, has a line in there that I often repeat, that the more freedom, either be, for the self, the more freedom for the self means that a bigger state is required. So if we're all going to be, these atomized people with just focusing our attention on ourselves, then we need a bigger and bigger state to kind of take care of us. And what that looks like, probably isn't going to be the best. So there's a lot to think about with that one. Next one, we are all the characters in the Bible.
Okay, so why is it procedural memory? Well, part of what I've been thinking about, it's like it's asking us to be every single character in every single story. So it's not like we all just get to be Moses. We're all also the Pharaoh, right? So when you're talking about figuring out, like, do you sweep too many things under the rug, or are you too confrontational, right? Are you too authoritarian? Are you too permissive? Like, we don't all just get to be Moses. We're also Aaron, right? We're also like, God comes down with his with thundering revelation with Moses. And Moses is like, hey man, I'll be right back. Like, don't do anything dumb. And they're like, let's build a golden calf and have orgies, right? It's like, he's not even around the corner yet. And we're all of those things, right? We're trying to strive upward, but we also are failing. And if we try to really embody them, which is what procedural memory is, it's the embodiment of a story, but we're all the different characters and things. Okay, so why is it
That's a good one too. In relation to kind of the one previously, I forget exactly, but about trying to be so dogmatic and pure and legalistic, like I know everything. You have a fallen side of you as well, and that is definitely represented in the Bible. So that's a nice thing to remind ourselves, is that we're everyone in the Bible, throughout the range of terrible, bad, and kind of good and best. So um, good, good to keep in mind. Next one, why religious ritual as a metaphor is useful.
There's a sense in which there's a lower aspect to this, like a more grounded aspect, but I think ultimately is looking up higher, which is something like, if you know how to pass, and this, it's going to sound boring when I say it, but it's like, if you know to pass food down the table, right? And if you know to be watching other people's glasses to make sure that they've got enough water, enough wine, or whatever,
Or
if you
bourbon.
have that attention, which is very grounded, and that you're attentive enough to make sure that everybody gets a little chance to speak, even before the content of what we're saying, that there's a embodied procedural reality that's ritualized, that makes it possible for the other part. And that, because what I'm trying to help people understand, it's like I'm really trying to help secular people understand religious ritual, like why religious ritual is useful. And so the idea is that, because you mentioned it before, like if we stand together and we sing, there's this.
Yep, that one's good. More common attention, but what's the word? Just lower levels of the common attention, but also it's participatory in the higher levels. It's a reflection of it. Yeah, so you could say that all these little things are, like sitting together as a family at the dinner table, letting everyone talk. They're all just, kind of pointless things, but they all participate in a higher body, and that's a good thing. Next one, entertainment as a replacement for virtuous action.
The problem of entertainment is often that it can just be a supplement, or it can just replace actual virtuous action, right? So it's like I watch movies about great figure that did things that are inspiring, and then I can just go back to sleep.
Yeah. You know where else we found that in a study is that's also what angry political tweeting does. It's like,
Yeah. Same.
I did my part today, boy. I really told them off.
That's right.
And then you go back to work and it's
Yeah.
like, right beneath you screaming at your hated politician or celebrity of choice, like what's the cause you're really worried about? If you can peel back all the layers of performative outrage that you're trying to help, right? Do you really care about like what's happening at the border or immigration, or like, how are you trying to fix that from whatever side you're coming from, right? Like what's the action that you're doing? And you're right, it can sometimes just be blowing off steam, but
Yeah, that's a really good one, especially because of the times that we live in. There's just so much distraction, and Michael Millerman did a video recently on Heidegger talking about idle talk and how just the abundance of information and our natural curiosity and going to and from social places. We're trying to stay up to date with all the things that are happening, and there's just so much of it because we have social media and everything and the internet, and so we know little bits and pieces about things, and we try to know little bits and pieces about a lot of things. So it's not like we know a tremendous amount, and then it's we try and kind of act like experts in on these things in front of one another, and we're kind of gauging each other on these topics. But so it's similar to the entertainment thing. We do these things and it replaces real action on important topics. So yeah, entertainment, mass curiosity, and kind of indulging in information, leading to a similar kind of stasis. Next one, the enduring mimesis of Hitler's body language.
Многие великие держали руки скрещенными на груди. Но Гитлер, в конце концов, действительно нашел для них другое место, как бы это выразиться поделикатнее, пониже пояса. Он упорно держал руки именно здесь. Если была занята правая рука, держал здесь левую. Ему стали подражать. Подражателей делалось все больше. Первым научился держать здесь руки шеф гестапо Гиммлер. Мой кроткий Генрих, как называл его Гитлер. Герингу это было труднее из-за брюха. А вот держат так руки Рэм и Гесс. Справа от вас Гесс, слева Рэм. Рэм командовал штурмовыми отрядами, был одним из ближайших. Многие
Yeah, so Mimesis, Rene Girard, we don't know what to desire, so we look around at other people to figure out what to desire, and we look out at these authority figures, and that definitely helps us. We kind of imitate their behaviors and their desires, and so you can see how that happened with the people around Hitler. Certainly happens today with everyone and their role models. Next one, why modern social justice movements are dull, hectoring, and ineffective.
It's incredibly telling that social justice movements kind of almost despite themselves reach after the kind of gestures and displays and narratives that clearly demonstrate that they are deriving from Christianity, washing people's feet, toppling statues, proclaiming that slaves have been brought into a promised land, all these stories. But because they've been divorced from the kind of fabric from which these stories originally emerged, they've been divorced from the matrix of that. They seem to me kind of, well, a bit dull, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of dull and hectoring, and unable, for instance, to kind of hook into the mainframe of people's emotional and spiritual responses in the way that the civil rights movement could. Because Martin Luther King, I think it's incredibly telling that social justice.
So that's really fascinating. That's Tom Holland, the writer of Dominion, how Christianity changed the world. A lot of fascinating things in that book, like just showing how Christianity has really, has such foundations in our society. Like secularism is just a response to Christianity. Like it's so it's still in a Christian framework. Like I'm not a Christian. I'm not I'm not religious. I'm just secular, which is something that is a response to Christianity. Maybe it's not the most convincing, but maybe I'm not saying it correctly. But in terms of that, just echoing, I guess the things, biblical ways of referencing the humanity of people. You know, a lot of the social justice movements are, you know, they're trying to protect victims, the weak, but at the same time, while they're doing so, they're you know, oppressing other people, and that's you know, you're basically, you know, doing the same thing that you're accusing other people are doing. So, and that's so if you were, you know, like Martin Luther King, I have a dream that, you know, every man is going to be equal. You know, the social justice movements of today, you know, I want trans and, you know, minority people, for example, to be raised above everyone else, and, you know, there's no equality. So something like that. Um, Definitely recommend looking into Tom Holland, because he's a historian. Great podcast. The rest is history. He just finished a new book on ancient Roman society, which is really good. And he wrote that book. He's not even a Christian. And he wrote on Islam, origins of Islam. Yeah, really, really interesting stuff and helpful stuff. Next one is philosophy's relation to the.
I have to stop and comment. These people, apparently at that time, hadn't studied their Leo Strauss. Because if you study Leo Strauss, you know it's not the case that every truth is off limits. Because when you philosophize, when you think about the nature of the truth and about what is true, you automatically that way take one step beyond opinion. Because if there are many opinions, you're calling them into question to see which, if any of them is true, and maybe none of them is. But in calling opinion into question, Strauss often argued, you call into question the element of political life, because politics is the realm of opinion. The philosopher, when he takes one step further, he calls the social fabric of the political community into question. And if he has any sense of moral decency and any sense of justice, he won't do that so carelessly, because it's like pouring acid over the very thing that he needs, the political community, since the philosopher doesn't philosophize in isolation on Mars or on an island. So I have to stop and comment. These people.
Yep. So Michael Milliman's great philosophy professor. He has his own online school. Does a lot of videos like that. I referenced him before, but yeah. When we think about things, think about the truth. Sometimes the truth is sometimes, like he said, dangerous for society. So we have to be careful, I guess, who we're, you know, exposing the truth to, because there are, you know, foundations that are, you know, taken for granted. But that's not to say that we shouldn't seek the truth. It's just we need to be careful with it at times. The next one, fractals of authority.
Levels and a fractal joining, which is that the king is crowned by the bishop, right? And the bishop has no, in theory, no authority, no power, and is crowned by let's say, receives his position from tradition. And so there's a way in which it's set up so that things get handed up. And if they're handed up, then they're okay. So if your leader takes all the power or the authority for themselves, then you know that they're a problem. But if authority is distributed both up and down, then you know that it should be okay. As soon as any level tries to compete with the levels below it, then you know that you're in trouble, right? When, let's say, the state tries to tell people how to raise their kids, for example, oh, then you have to start to feel nervous because levels and a fraction.
Yeah, I think that's such a timely comment by Jonathan there. You know, what do state officials do? What should be their role, their arena? What should they be doing that we shouldn't be doing? A good example is, yeah, how should Joe Biden, our representatives in Congress, our representatives the state level, our county representatives, should they, even that the lowest level there, should they be telling us how to raise our kids? Yeah, I definitely think that's a question that we need to think about more. The fractals of authority. Where do we have our authority and where do we give it up? Yeah, that's a good one. Next one, Friendship of Jesus, the Frankenstein story.
Scene in that second movie where the monster, who still can't speak, he's growling, he's running away through the woods, and in the middle of the forest he finds this cottage of an old blind man. The man's blind, and he's as the monster's coming in, the blind man is on his knees praying to God, saying, "Oh God, please give me a friend to be of some comfort to me in my terrible loneliness." And then in comes the monster. Now the monster, the blind man can't see him, not afraid. But he can sense the monster can't speak. And he says, "Oh, you have an affliction, you can't speak. I have an affliction, I can't see. We can be friends." So the blind man begins to be so friendly. This is something the Frankenstein monster has never experienced. He feeds him, he takes care of him, he sings to him. And you can see under the power of the friendship, which the monster has never experienced, he starts to humanize. He starts to say things like food and good. But then, of course, some soldiers who are out there trying to find the monster, they look into the cottage, they see the monster, they attack the cottage is burned down to the ground, and all you see at the end of the scene is the monster groping off into the woods, out of the fire and the smoke, just saying, "Friend, friend, friend, where's my friend?" It's almost like the Frankenstein monster. It reminds me of me, because until I found Jesus Christ, I felt like I was sort of stitched together by what everybody else said about me. My parents said one thing about me, and my friends said another thing about me, and everybody had a different thing, a verdict they gave me about who I was. So my self-image looked like a Frankenstein monster. What I needed, what you need, is a friend, the ultimate friend, whose love can overturn all the other verdicts and make you human. We're all out there like him. Every human being's out there looking for the friend. Friend, if I could just find the ultimate friend, then I could finally be the human being that I'm meant to be. Well, here he is. Let's pray. Thank you, Father.
Tim Keller is the best. Rest in peace. Yeah, that's just a beautiful story of love and friendship, and how that changes the world, and how Jesus changes us by being a loving friend, and always wherever we are. Next one, by suffering comes understanding.
As you said it nicely a while back. Oh, yeah, sorry. You're not going to like this, comma, but, right? And the sort of the dark piece of the loop is
Yeah.
well, how dark does it have to get for you to get past the fact that you don't like it?
That's right.
And that's how my life has worked, right? I've very rarely learned anything truly deep and meaningful without fighting as hard as possible not to, for as long as I can get away with it.
Yep, same thing in my life as well. Um, C.S. Lewis, similar thing, that he became a Christian after, he forget the exact line, but said he was like dragged like completely unwillingly into becoming a Christian. But just everything. We think we understand everything and have it all figured out, and even if something good, we can kind of perceive it being good for us until we maybe experience some suffering. Do we actually accept it? But yeah, and how we might do that without experiencing the suffering, I don't know. Maybe the suffering is definitely something we can't really get around. But there's some good on the other side of it, so we have to put our hope in that. The last one, I do know that song.
My oldest daughter was really little. She used to sing about everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'd be driving in the car and she'd be in her seat in the back, and she'd be going, the cows and the horses and eating the grass and sun is shining. And it was terrible. Eh?
Right.
It didn't have a tune. And it was whatever her eyes saw.
Right.
Okay. And then she'd say to me, you know that song, Mom? And I'd say, I do know that song. Because when you're seeing all this and it's overwhelming you have this feeling like you just want to sing.
Yeah.
You want to sing it. You don't want to just say it. You want to sing it.
Yep.
Right? So that's what she was doing. And she'd say, and her question, she's like 3, her question was, do you know that song, Mom? Do you know the feelings I'm having? Do you know?
Right.
Right. And I'd be like, yeah, I do. I know that song, and it feels to me like this is what Elihu's doing. He's like looking at, he sees it in the distance. His eyes are, and he's caught up in his own whirlwind of his oration, and it just gets like all the majesty of the thing approaching is translated into his words, and and he's not wrong. He's describing God like beautifully.
Right. And there's back to
Yeah, that's highly recommend watching that series on Job with Jess and Sherry. Learned so much about Job and the Bible, and how to have a good relationship with and perspective with God and suffering, and through them speaking about that. But that's that's a nice clip that Sherry, nice little story about Sherry and her daughter about experiencing the beauty of the world, and just the astonishing majesty and overwhelming nature of God at times. And even we kids as young as 3, that they understand it, we understand it. So we're not all that different, all of us, and our experience of the world. So yeah, this was a lot of fun. I will collect some more and be back for the next episode. Let me know what you guys think about all of these clips. If you have any questions on where I got them from, I guess it says here, where they're from. But yeah, leave a comment. And yeah, hope you guys are all doing well. Take care.